glad the kids were in school, because I figured they were safer.
Do you have any big trees on your farm?
Not really, and there is one really big one on the yard, like backyards from us. It could have been obsessed. We were really lucky too. We didn't have any damage.
Because we have those big pine trees, and they want to get them taken out, but now.
Weekend, but yeah, I'm much delayed on that. I should have got one more time.
I bet you
Started off this week.
But you didn't know that about.
No,
That's amazing. Pine trees are really notorious for falling down.
they really take the rocks out. They're so huge. We have, five.
$2,000, over $2,000.
Providence, our next one is it's right on the other side of the hill. It's just
Must be a conspiracy.
And I guess you can't do anything.
Because all the other technologies come down. As they come down.
Windows are cheap. Well, we're moving now, but we can talk about replacing our windows at some point. We have like 26
forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here, and do not leave your cares at the door. Bring your pain and sorrow and joy. There's a place for them upon the altar of life. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here, and do not leave your cares at the door. This is a place of grace, of losing and finding our way upon the winding road, meeting and parting, stumbling and starting over. Every story is sacred here, even yours, even yours. So come on in and do not leave your cares at the door. Do not in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning earth. Goddess of all time's progression, stand with us when we engage, hands and hearts to end oppression, writing history's fairer page. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning age.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Good morning. I got here a little early this morning, was looking at the newspaper, and it listed out 5 apps that you can install on your phone to track your happiness level throughout the day by uploading photos and keeping a journal and everything. But I'd like to encourage us, if you've got your phone with you today, unless you are using it to control your hearing device, if you would take a moment just to turn that off, and let's be present here now. And let's engage with each other live, real time, face to face, and let's encourage and help each other be happier today. My name is Brandon Carter, and I serve on the Board of Trustees of this Unitarian Universalist Church in Spartanburg, and I am happy to see you here this morning. As you came in, you should have gotten the Connect list. Lots of great opportunities to engage, to grow your happiness, and to encourage the happiness in others this week. I'd like to highlight just a couple of these. The first one, this next Sunday, we're having our annual Stone Soup, previously the Super Bowl fundraiser. It's going to take place Sunday after the service next week. This year, we're adapting this popular fundraiser in a few ways. Rather than selling tickets, we'll be seeking donations, and you can donate after the service today or at the actual event next week. This is allow all of those to give generously that can do so, and those with limited resources can still have an opportunity to join us for this fellowship time. Second, this year, it is a Bring Your Own Bowl event. So that is, we are very green around here, and so bringing your own bowl will allow you to enjoy the event, take that home, clean it, and will help us reduce waste. There is a sign-up sheet out in the foyer as well as in the fellowship hall. We do still need people to sign up for bringing desserts to this event, and if you are available this Saturday at 11 o'clock, for about an hour to help us set up tables, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you are available to stay after for just a little bit to help break everything down, that would also be helpful. In March the 6th, in lieu of our normal coffee house event, the Coffee House Committee is hosting a concert by musician and political satirist Roy Zimmerman. So that's 2 Fridays from now on March the 6th. Roy Zimmerman's signature blend of heart and hilarity has been More Than Necessary, 90 minutes of Roy Zimmerman's original songs, a funny and forceful affirmation of peace and social justice will be during this time. Royce has favorable reviews from Tom Laurier and Joni Mitchell, among others. Fred Stoll will be selling tickets. Fred, if you'll just kind of wave. Selling tickets after the service today and for the next Sunday before and after the service as well. Tickets, if you buy them in advance, is $20 at the door. They'll be $25. So see Fred after the service today to save a little bit of money if you would like to enjoy that. You can also buy tickets online to see the posters for the way to do that. Thanks, Fred. If you're visiting us with us for the first time or after a long hiatus, I invite you, if you feel comfortable, to please stand, tell us your name and where you're from so that we may better greet you after the service. I'm not sure if we've got a microphone. I don't guess so. So just speak real loud. Use your outside voice. Welcome, Connie. In July, and we've been, everybody's been filling out pledge cards and submitting those online just so that we can kind of start the planning process for creating our budget for next year. And so I wanted to give you an update on the total amount raised or pledged so far. So far, 87 people have pledged a total of $181,500 towards our goal. So that puts us 78% of the way there, so we're almost there, just a little bit more to go, just over $53,000 more in order to reach our goal. And so I would just encourage you, we really do need your help in reaching our goals so that we can continue to do all the great and wonderful things that we do here. And I know there's lots of things planned for the future and ideas of new things to do and to start, and your generosity helps support all of those initiatives. There is a part of the handout today is a list of all those who have already turned in their pledge cards, and I realize the last few weeks have been a little hectic and a little crazy for a lot of people, so if you still need to turn in a pledge commitment form, you can see me after the service in the lobby there. I'll have those, and if you've got some questions, I can answer that for you as well. On the bottom of the list of people that have pledged, there's also a website that you can submit that information online as well. So we've got about 2 more weeks throughout February for you to get that in and to let us know so that we can get started on making our budget. Now I'd like to invite Deb Williams up. Deb serves on our membership committee as well as on building and grounds, and so she's going to give you just a little bit of an update on that committee. Is Deb here? Oh, there she is. But you really did back out on me like you said you were going to do.
As Brandon said, I am Deb Williams, and I've served in many committees, and on this, only thing that mattered was white, straight, and American. It was quite normal to me. There were 4 things in my life that impressed me and still stay with me. The first was when I was almost 4 years old. I was in the car with my grandmother. We had been shopping, and they came on the radio that John F. Kennedy, our president, had been assassinated. She pulled over to the side of the road. I'm sorry, y'all. She pulled over to the side of the road, and she wept because our president had been murdered. When I was 8 years old, still believing in racist ways, I was lying in the floor of my family home when they came on the news and said that Martin Luther King Jr. had been murdered. there was almost excitement and happiness in my house. And I think at that time was the first time I didn't see color. I saw a preacher that had been murdered. That's when I started to change. When I was 16, I attended religiously a Southern Baptist church just up the road. I was 16 years old, and the men and women in leadership at that church decided that they were going to shame the youth director and myself of that church because of who they thought I might love. I walked out the door and did not walk back into a church until I was 41 years old, and that's this place. I walked through the door, waiting for the shoe to drop, but it didn't. Wasn't long till I met Marion Tisdale. He knew who I was, and he asked me to be on the board the next year. It wasn't long after that, I met Bob Mitchell and Ed Wild, along with Marion. That was the Buildings and Grounds Committee when there really wasn't a committee. It was just their name. I helped Marion prepare a building across the street for a cluster meeting, and I worked with Bob and Ed to build the original stage in here. These men in leadership never looked at me differently. They always treated me with respect and acceptance. That's why I serve on Buildings and Grounds now, because somebody's got to do it. You know. So here comes the update part. Buildings and Grounds, y'all know that there's a lot going on down in Wild Hall. Kitchen's being finished, yay. Buildings and Grounds is working on the infrastructure of the older part of the building and taking care of the outside. We have made recommendations, and those are being followed up on. Now let me turn back to membership. When I walked through the doors, this place wasn't here. You came in the old foyer doors. There was a lady there who opened the door named Nancy Fordyce. And Nancy Fordyce became my adopted mother on Sunday mornings. She had a table to the left-hand side with a book that she made you sign, and you could get a red name tag right then. That's why we have 3 bags back there that nobody ever comes, but anyway. So when the opportunity came, I got involved in membership because I wanted to be that person that she was in welcoming people who might be hurt and might be wondering and might just need community. I love membership. I love welcoming people in. I love path to membership class. I love to prepare the food for them. It's my gravy train is membership. I love it. So update on the membership committee. Our membership committee has grown this year with more people. Yay. We do currently go to Converse College and USC Upstate for faith fairs along with Scott. And we have taken information to Pride festivals and other things over in Greenville that Ann Gardner has asked for information to be sent to. So that's why I give to this place, because this place is different, it's accepting, it's loving. Even though we have our problems sometimes, we still all love each other. That's why I contribute financially and I give of my time. Now I'll go back to the original of what Brandon sent me, because this is all I kept. I love you. Your financial giving makes the maintenance, beautification, and future visiting of our property and meeting spaces welcoming, safe, and inspiring for all of us, and those we welcome each week as visitors, friends, and members to our beloved community. Thank you.
Good morning. The dream of a minister is that the lives of the congregants is the only sermon we need. Welcome to this place.
The Common Humanity We All Share by James Cone from Soul Work. Whites who talk with me about white supremacy need to be informed and sensitive to the common humanity we all share. All I ask of whites is to put themselves in black people's place in this society and world, and then ask themselves what they would say or do if they were in black people's place. Would you be angry about 246 years of slavery and 100 years of lynching and segregation? What would you say about the incarceration of 1 million of your people in prisons, 1/2 of the penal population, while your people represent only 12% of the U.S. Census? Would you get angry if your racial group used 13% of the drugs but did 74% of the prison time for simple possession? Would you caution the oppressed in your community to speak about their pain with calm and patience? What would you say about ministers and theologians who preach and teach about justice and love, but ignore the socio-political oppression of your people? Black anger upsets only whites who choose not to identify with black suffering.
If you would, turn to page 318 in your gray hymnal. We would be one.
Our denomination does not have a creed, However, our congregation created a covenant to describe how we want to be with each other and how we want to be in the world. The words of the covenant are paper-clipped in the back, or in the front, of each hymn book. Please join me now in saying our covenant together. We are a people of faith and hope. Together we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of love beyond belief. We're now at our time of stones of meditation and prayer and compassion. I invite you to come forward if you wish to place a stone or a shell in our rippling water bowl to represent a joy or sorrow. We find that sorrows shared are lessened and joys shared are multiplied. Well, one of our great joys we share when we gather together is the opportunity to greet each other. But there are some of us that love it just a little less, and it's still cold and flu season as well, so please ask before you hug. A warm hello and a smile are always welcome, and so's the elbow bump. So please do take a minute or two now and greet those around you.
We have so many heroes in this place, and I want to thank the heroes who do the AV, who, yes. You know, to volunteer to do something like that is a gift of time and learning, but also the scrutiny of all of us. And there's a sense in which all of our lives are just ongoing experiments, right? So I think they deserve another round of applause for risking. You'll know when the microphone shut off halfway through my meditation that that was on purpose. It's good to see you all this morning. We are in a series for 3 months of considering social justice projects that we might engage in as a congregation. We'll vote on this at our annual meeting in June. Last month, we spent the entire month thinking about the issue of immigration in our community and also across our country and globally. It's a global phenomenon. And this month, we have been considering racism and voting, and thinking especially about the self-scrutiny, the self-work that is required in order to engage effectively in the work of racial justice, and considering its connection with the experiment in democracy that is our nation, of our troubled history and of the possibility of our future. If you'll open your bulletin, there is a 2-page document. First, I want you to relax. I'm not going to read this to you. Now you can get tense. I'm going to make you sit with it. This is a very well-known document that has been used in anti-racist training and activism for the better part of 2 decades. It is a continuum to help organizations analyze the work that lays before them in order to become more anti-racist and multicultural. This document is not meant to be used to think about all the people around you and all of their flaws. This isn't about pointing your finger at other people. This is about looking at yourself within the system of an institution or an organization and asking, not how bad are we, and not how bad is my neighbor, but what is the real work that we can do? What is the work that we can do? We're going to enter into our time of silent reflection. And I'm going to leave you just to look at this document. And I'm going to trust you to take it with you and to continue to look at it. And I'm going to thank you that on a Sunday morning, there's a congregation in Spartanburg, South Carolina, that is opening this document and holding it seriously, asking, what can we do? We've already heard the sermon of our own lives, what this place is. And we hold in our hands one map of what this place can be. Let us bring our gifts and unleash our power. That song that Keith just played for us is the lead song on an album that my wife and I used to play for our children when they were infants to help them sleep. So now I'm all misty-eyed and drowsy. Yesterday was beautiful. Outside and inside this place. And to talk about the things that we are talking about today is a gift. It is very good. Let me express again my gratitude. We hosted here on MLK Day a service project, putting together hygiene kits for fellow citizens who are homeless or who are very poor to be distributed through 5 community agencies. We had a wonderful day that day, highly organized by people of high organization. We accomplished our task in less than an hour, and the hygiene kits were distributed. It was a great success. But at the start of that day, 5 elected officials from the South Converse and South Spartanburg neighborhood came and spoke to us about the South Converse neighborhood of which we were a part, and spoke to us about the history of heroes and leaders from the south side of Spartanburg City, traditionally an African-American part of town. They shared with us the story that One of Dr. King's first sermons as an ordained minister was at a Baptist church just across the street from us, just a stone's throw from us, giving us a taste of the rich history of this place and inviting us into a connection with it. And at that gathering, on that day of service, the senior leader of those five, Brenda Lee Price, the first black woman to be elected from Spartanburg County to serve in the state legislature, asked if we might host another event, an event on February 15th, now yesterday. There was to be an unveiling of art, public art, in the neighborhood, just down the street from us, on the corner. And given that weather in February can be bad, would we be willing to host the program before the unveiling and then the reception afterwards? All of this offered on that MLK Day of service. We were, of course, honored and said yes. And that event took place yesterday. We were the host, the venue, leading but not in charge, leading by offering hospitality and using what we have, our building, our time, our resources, those forms of power that we hold to make space, to share space, to serve this community. Our church is here because of a program called Urban Renewal, which was spoken about yesterday. A program that included the demolition of housing and that involved the destruction of many businesses. It was a misguided urban policy prevalent throughout the United States, also in Spartanburg. We're going to look at that all month next month, about what it means to be a neighbor in this neighborhood, how we came to be here, and what we can do about it. Not to blame ourselves, not to pile guilt on, but just to think, what's the reality of our being here? And what is the potential that it offers us? It takes nothing from us to acknowledge our connection to that history. It takes nothing away from us to say that's part of who we are. It actually makes us stronger to acknowledge it, to see it, and to own it. And yesterday, we played host to a gathering. The fellowship hall packed to overflowing, standing room only, of leaders and citizens and church members and other folks from all across this community piling into our building. The building that we bought on this land, that we built on this land that we bought. Speaking about that history, naming it for exactly what it is, and we offering hospitality to that. I tell you, the spirit in the room was palpable and powerful and wholly good. People pouring through the doors, jostling for space, making space for each other. History told, history celebrated, history sung, and leaving with joy. It was a powerful event. What happened here yesterday, acknowledging the truth of all of our lives without exception, without hiding, changed us. It was amazing. Those of you who were here know. And those of you who were not here, I want you to know. It was something else in that room yesterday. What happened here yesterday, I alone cannot create. And you and I, all of us in this room together, We could not create what happened in this room yesterday. But our neighbors around us could. And if we would make space, if we would share power with them, the power of our resources, opening our building, opening our lives to truth and to connection, our power connecting with theirs, we could create what happened here yesterday together. And what a day it was. Yesterday was beautiful. Everyone there could feel the power of that moment. Shared space, shared power, and the result, expansion. Something big happening. Something bigger than all of us. The feeling of a greater emerging potential to do things that matter. A power within us and between us. This is what we are seeking. All month we have been thinking about racism and voting, about what democracy is and how we have made it less than it should be. And then we have deceived ourselves to think that it is, and what we could do to change that. After this service, we'll have a dialogue in the fellowship hall, the same hall where we met yesterday, to talk about these things, to think through the projects that we might engage with through our Social Justice Council, projects that we'll vote on come our June annual meeting. And I want to ask you to stay after the service to get a cup of coffee, to get some cake, and to engage in that discussion. All ideas are welcome. All views are welcome. We take seriously our value of openness and democratic process. This will be a chance for us to think and speak together in that same space where such power opened up yesterday. Power is at the core of both racism and voting. But what is power? It's just the ability to do things. What matters is how we use it, and for what purpose, and in service to whom. This is the fundamental question of our democracy and of social justice more broadly. Who does this serve? Who is this for? The goal of shared power is to make space for one another and to call forth our very best from one another so that we can connect, so that the power to do something that matters, the power to remake this world into a place more livable for us all, comes to life. Why talk about power? It can be so disconcerting to do so. And we may not think of ourselves as people with much power, and certainly not as people who seek power. Definitely not for our own sakes. We have decided to be people of care and people of service, people of fellowship, people devoted to a more compassionate and just world, people of humanity, people committed to interconnectedness. But the challenge of our democracy and the challenge of our commitment to be anti-racist and anti-oppression is the challenge to see more clearly what power is and how it works and how concerned with acquiring it and holding on to it we may be. This is indeed disconcerting. It can be very troubling. Even when we think we know who we are and what we are doing, we may find in our thoughts and actions a desire for power we did not know was there, and yet which is profoundly a part of us. This is daunting, difficult work. But when we do it, we discover a deeper power, a power within and between us that is liberating and transformative for ourselves and for the world. Paradoxically, and spiritual truth is often found in paradox, when we slow down to face ourselves internally, when we do the work of seeing who we really are, we accelerate our ability to impact the world around us. You know that I work with an organization called Speaking Down Barriers. And broadly construed, we work in a field called diversity and inclusion. It's an industry. Yeah, that should ring hollow to you. The diversity and inclusion industry. It's becoming a big business. That's not why we're in it, and those aren't the bucks that we make. One of the trainings that we offer is called Beyond Diversity and Inclusion. And the reason is this. When we say that we want to be more diverse, there is an aspect of power that is implied in our words. It's concealed, but it's not hard to see if we slow down and look. Diverse from what? The word diversity implies that there is a center, a norm, some way of being that is considered the standard, and then an acceptable level of variation from that we call diversity. Or the word inclusion. Way better than the word exclusion. Certainly better than overt violence, but not enough. Because who is doing the including? And who is waiting to be included? Diversity and inclusion are better than what came before, but they are not nearly enough. We have to move beyond this idea of an acceptable standard and acceptable variation. We have to move beyond this idea of including and holding that power of inclusion to something more shared. We must realize the space that we occupy and the demands that we place on that space and on others in order to control access to it so that we can let go. Let go of the space. Let go of its privileges. Let go of our control of it. And with the bigger goal of building a life together, learn to share the space, to share the privileges, to share control and its effects on other people, to share power with others. This is difficult, it is disruptive, and it changes everything. We have been reading all month words from the theologian James Cone. He is the preeminent black theologian in North America in the 20th century, second half of the 20th century. We've been reading excerpts from this book of dialogues, in which his essay is the lead essay. In this essay, Cone talks about racism in churches, and particularly in theologians and in ministers. I want to just highlight that, because as I talk about this, I want you to know that I am the first subject of everything that I'm saying. I am intensely aware of the power that I wield standing up here. You have power too. You cannot come, right? You cannot pledge. You can organize and vote me out. You hold that power. But as long as I've got this microphone, it's not a threat. This is a lot of power. I gain a lot by us not going any further with this. And I want you to see too that part of your job is to hold me accountable, to keep meeting with me and pushing me so that we do the real work. Cone says that we must make space. We must realize the power that we hold and decide to share it for the sake of something more. He writes, "One of the most important things whites can do in fighting white supremacy is to support black empowerment in the society, in the church, and in theology. Black empowerment means blacks thinking, speaking, and doing for themselves." I want to be real clear. Cone's not saying that black people can't or don't do this. He is a black theologian. He is a leading theologian of the 20th century. He is a premier exemplar of all of these things. He's not saying that people of color don't do these things. He's saying white people need to stop interrupting and to sit down and listen, to make space. The black church and black theology are black empowerment in religion, he goes on. One reason why there are so few blacks in the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, and other white churches is because these churches are ecclesiastical structures of white supremacy. That's just what they came from. For blacks to be members of white churches, it is necessary to follow the rules laid down by whites, unless whites are willing to help change the rules to reflect black history and culture. To create an anti-racist theology, white theologians must engage the histories, cultures, and theologies of people of color. It is not enough to condemn racism. The voices of people of color must be found in your theology. Hold that continuum in your hands, the bulletin insert that was distributed to you this morning. Hold that continuum in your hands. The purpose of this continuum is for us to constantly challenge ourselves. It's not about blaming each other. It's not about wallowing in guilt. That is misdirection. This is an affirming document to challenge us to move forward. Please use it responsibly and often. When we challenge ourselves, great potential, great energy, great power is unleashed to do the work of transformation. The analysis is hard. Diversity and inclusion are good, but they are not enough. The words themselves show us they are not enough. They retain power for themselves. It's not enough. It's not democracy. Our history is of people who have held on to power and excluded others from it for the sake of control and the benefits that control creates. This has permeated our culture. It has permeated our consciousness. It generates our images of leadership and economics and organizational success. It's hard to imagine anything other than what we've been taught. It is everywhere, all around us and inside of us. But we can change it. When we feel the impulse to diminish the power of others for our own gain, choose the opposite. Just don't do it. And choose the opposite. We can choose to build democratic, mutually empowering relationships with one another. This is hard. It is messy. It is frustrating. It requires us to slow down over and over again and to listen to one another over and over again and to reconsider all of our assumptions over and over again and to change our behavior and to mess it up and to try to change again over and over and over again so that we evolve as human beings together. It requires our images of leadership and success to change until we see that every single one of us is a leader, bearing essential gifts for our shared success. It is so hard, and it is worth it. To do this work is to unleash a far greater power than the desire for greed or domination or control. When we set our goal as more than diversity and more than inclusion, when we set our goal as shared power and open ourselves to constant reevaluation and change, then we summon what is deepest and best in one another. Then we call forth the power that is in each of us. Those of us who have benefited from oppression and those of us who have not, both of us transformed together. And then we act. And what we will create, everyone will be able to feel. No one in the room will be able to mistake that something far beyond any one of us is emerging in that room. Yesterday was absolutely beautiful. And to do this work with you today is very, very good. This is the beginning.
Please turn in your hymnals, the gray hymnals, to page 131. Love will guide us. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the whole night.
More Than We Ever Dreamed by James Cone. We must do something concrete about dismantling white supremacy. I know this task is not easy, but a very difficult endeavor. Yet do not be discouraged. Despair only supports the enemy. Working together with each other and with the great spirit of the universe, we can accomplish more than we ever dreamed.
while this is